Hey everyone, it's me again, back with a new installment of Revolutions. I'm going to show you what I've been playing recently. We're in lockdown again, so playing a lot of records and, just thought I'd share with you what I've been playing. I mean, you know, I'm just some bozo who shows records. I'm not doing anything special. If you're still watching, then thank you very much. Thank you for the warm welcome back from my last video. I appreciate the interactions. Also, really enjoyed catching up with Mark and John on the Dr. Rhythm channel. I can leave a link if you want to watch that video on Sunday night, and we just shared records on Zoom, and it's kind of cool because when you live alone like I do, it's nice. The interaction is really quite nice, and exchanging those kinds of you know um, thoughts about records, being turned on to something. That's cool. Anyway, I digress. I'm gonna get you get myself started, and I I'm going to start with a Swedish, a great Swedish jazz rock record. We'll say jazz rock loosely. Solid Plexus, a record that was sent to me many years ago by my good friend Anders in Stockholm, and I talk with Anders almost every day. We just talk on WhatsApp together, and he sent me this 10 years ago when we first started in the vinyl community, and I still cherish this record. It's a bit like a Swedish version of a Placebo or record, if you're familiar with Placebo, the Belgian jazz funk band, or even Cortex, the French equivalent to that. Fender Rhodes, some flutes, some guitar. It's a four-sided affair, and side three or side C has got this very ambitious concerto grosso for pop group, which is kind of a cool concept to tackle for a sort of a jazz, a jazz prog band. Band led by George Vadenius, who is a legend in prog circles in Sweden. So thank you, Anders, again. I really enjoyed this record again. Following this up is a record that is epic in every way, shape, and form. It's the Great Lotus by Santana from 1975. It's a live recording from Japan, and it's really, it sounds like what it looks like, simply very, meditational, very spiritual. Features obviously the great Latin jazz guitar workout of the great Santana. His records are so underrated, I reckon. Like a record like Caravanserai, you could find in every record store here in Melbourne for $10. Nobody wanted them. Yet such a great. It's almost like a crap rock record, but done by Latin dudes, and it's fantastic. Has Michael Shreve obviously on percussion, and a great ensemble of people. Triple LP, not very expensive either, which is strange. Here is a pair of Melbourne records. So the first one, it's a good segue actually. Ritual Music. This is a record from 2020, which was released by a drummer called Christopher Port. His name is. A name doesn't appear really anywhere except maybe on the spine. And Christopher Port is, as I said, a jazz percussionist. And you can see by the title of the track, total refreshment of the spiritual center. And look, this is not a jazz record. It's an electronic record, sort of a future jazz electronic record, inspired largely by things like Alice Coltrane. And so, hence, you've got this beautiful slave and ritual music as a title. So you've got sort of, yeah, some jazz textures, but electronic driven beats, you know, in the, you know, like a bit like a quartet record, or you know, in that kind of ballpark. Very, very beautiful, trippy records, electronic, you know, verging on, you know, like a little bit of ambient techno-ish, but with, you know, more jazzy beats. Here is another Melbourne record, Glass Beams. Glass Beams is a project on the Great Research Records. And so Research Records is the label that released Mild Life all these years ago, the Orange album. And you can see that the iconography, the design of this is very reminiscent of Mild Life. The thing with Glass Beams is nobody really quite knows who they are, if it's one guy or a bunch of dudes, or maybe people from Mild Life having fun in the studio. The point being that it's a great EP, it's got 4 tracks, and the music is a mix between psych, funk, a little progressive, a little jazz, like Mild Life. I mean, you know, these references are not very far away from Mild Life. The second track, Taurus, is very reminiscent of a Khruangbin track. I mean, if you placed it on the second Khruangbin record, nobody would know that it was. it's in exactly the same ballpark sonically, but the other tracks are a bit more diverse. Like you've got a little bit of Bollywood kind of sampled vocals and some spaghetti western a la Morricone, you know, guitars included in the mix. You know, it's a great hodgepodge of sort of a psych and funk and jazz. And this just came out 2 weeks ago on Research Records. It's an EP, and as I sort of collect things from Melbourne, you know, this was a no-brainer. I just got it because it's cool. In a different style, nonetheless very good. Coil, music to play in the dark. So Coil are sort of an industrial, on this very progressive electronic band from, I think I'm pretty sure they're an English band. The 2 main members are deceased, sadly. Both of them died very young. This is the album they released in 1999, and arguably one of their most revered, one of their masterpieces, music to play in the dark. And as the name indicates, very, very much so, music to play at night. Great sort of ambient, electronic, progressive, jarring at times, a little jarring, but not to the point where you have to really, some industrial records, you know, you really have to be in the mood for them. I mean, you know, like with every type of music, you have to be in the mood to play. And this is a beautiful, with spoken word vocals. It's just been reissued, like at the end of last year, they reissued it for the first time. I went for the black vinyl because, I mean, I really don't give a shit about colored vinyl. To me, it's like, it doesn't even play a part in my record buying. I know that some people are obsessed with getting a variant of a different color. I don't see the point personally, but don't feel personally attacked by this. It's just me. I just think paying $20 more for a yellow version of this was out of the question. Here is a progressive electronic record from a few years back, probably 2012-ish. Jürgen Müller, Science of the Sea. This is an interesting project. This is in this sort of Brian Eno cluster. kind of wheelhouse. Klaus Schulze comes to mind, and this record it was rumored to have been a lost classic from 1982, but I think it's been proven that in fact it was some dude in his bedroom with a bunch of synths and sequences who did this record and passed it for a lost classic, or as people like to say, a grail, a lost grail. I hate that word, my God. It's just so overused, like every time you see a video, and so people are so clickbaity with these things. They just put these clickbait thumbnails with, video with 10 grails or something. Are you insane? It's just me. When I see this stuff, I just feel so, come on, let's be serious here. They're records. So, complete digression. You probably unsubscribed for this. This is a nice record, but it wasn't made in 1982. It was made in the 2000s by some dude who was a bit bored in his bedroom and had enough equipment to make it sound like it was 1982. But it's nonetheless a great ambient little curio. When I appeared on Mark and John's video on Sunday, I was talking about Midori Takada, the Japanese percussionist, and I was talking about Through the Looking Glass, her fantastic debut album or second album. And she was also associated with this project, the Kwaju Ensemble. And this is a reissue on We Release Whatever the Fuck We Want Records. A great sort of tribal ambient, Steve Reich, John Hassel-esque record. If that's your bag, I mean, totally go for this. It's beautiful. It's very, meditative and spiritual and tranquil, and it's a beautiful record. It's very, it's all drum based. It's like marimbas and wood blocks, and it's got this kind of gamelan also kind of quality to it. So yeah, the Midori Takada solo record is better, though, I will say, but this is good. In a different wheelhouse, some alt country, indie folk type music. Bill Callahan, formerly of Smog, under the Smog name, he was recording. And this is a live record called Rough Travel for a Rare Thing, which he recorded on a rooftop in Melbourne in 2010 maybe, or in his greatest period arguably, following up is my favorite Smog album, which is A River Ain't Too Much to Love. Great songs like Say Valley Maker, In the Pines, Rock Bottom Riser, fantastic. The Well. I mean, if you've never heard A River Ain't Too Much to Love, it's a great place to start with Smog. It's got this kind of wry delivery. His voice is somewhat reminiscent of a sort of modern Lou Reed. And, when we say alt country, alternative country, it's really, it's more like a folky, indie folk kind of sound. This is a brilliant record. The versions are very close, and he even plays like things like Held, classic Smog, and I saw him around the time when he came to Melbourne, but not on that precise concert. I should have gone, actually. I didn't go. I'm stupid. Here's another favorite album of the past few years, Wise Blood, Titanic Rising, the sort of, love child of Kate Bush and Linda Ronstadt. Some very sort of like 70s country rock influences on this record, and beautiful, very meaningful to me. The opening song, it was kind of serendipitous. I heard this very randomly, and a lot's got to change. Funny to say this on camera, but It was almost as if my wife had sent me that song. My wife died in 2018, and this song says, "Oh, you're going to be all right. You're going to make it." When I heard it, I was in a phase where I needed to hear something like this to push me along. So this has got a lot of meaning to me. I saw her doing on this tour in Melbourne. She was fantastic. My God. An absolute classic everybody should own. Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. Just a beautiful record. I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about this record. It sort of prompted me to play it. There is not a bad song on this record. This record is an absolute start to finish masterpiece. I think, there's nothing much to be said about this. This is as old as I am, this record. Between Sir Duke and I Wish, and even the brilliance of Isn't She Lovely. How do you write songs like these? How do you, these guys. The other Greek freak, if you don't follow basketball, today the Milwaukee Bucks won the NBA championship, and the main player Giannis is nicknamed the Greek Freak. So this is the original Greek Freak, Vangelis. This is an album, one of his first albums after he left Aphrodite's Child, Earth. It's got vocals, which is very rare on the Vangelis record. I found this for €2 or €3 in my hometown in France in a bin on the floor. I couldn't leave it behind at the time. It's a wonderful, wonderful progressive psyche, electronic record. It's a full blast, absolute must-have spiritual jazz, South African spiritual jazz record. African Songbird, Bia Benjamin and husband, Dollar Brand. This was reissued a few years ago on Matsuli Music. And the title track, Africa, or the first track, Africa, just listen to that and you'll want this record. It's just, she's like a Billie Holiday, Abby Lincoln type. A vocal jazz. Vocal jazz is not my thing usually, but with this it definitely is beautiful. Sort of soulful, spiritual jazz. No question. Here is a record that's a bit of a sort of cheap heat, buried treasure. Steve Winwood with Ark of a Diver. You probably see this in every record shop you go to, and you probably leave it behind because you think it's probably, not very good. But you're wrong. This is a great talk-like record. It's got this kind of vibe, and his voice is great. I love Traffic, and I love Winwood, and I love almost every project that he's associated with. His 70s records are fantastic, like John Barleycorn Must Die, and the live record is just, songs like Glad, for example. They just do it for me. Like this the right spot between progressive and jazz. It's very, very, very cool. And this record from 1980, it goes into the sort of like sophisti-pop, but very much like talk. Listen to Spanish Dancer, the song Spanish Dancer. I promise you, I'm not joking. It's a beautiful, beautiful record. Continuing with a record from this year, which I've been playing a bit. This is the new Godspeed, You Black Emperor, and it's got a very weird name, this record. Godspeed at State's End. There's the title of that record there, if you want to check it out. And it is as you can see, 180 gram LP and a 10-inch LP as well. A very bizarre format. You've got this 10-inch thing there. Very strange. So we've Godspeed. If you're not familiar with Godspeed, they're a post-rock band, one of the sort of main exponent of the genre from Montreal, led by Ephraim Manuel Menac, his name is, and Ephraim Manu. I wonder, because they're French Canadian, if it's Manuel Menuc, and this guy, you know, he's the brain behind Godspeed. Godspeed has been going for many years now. I got, you know, Lift Your Skinny Fist is from 2001 or 2001. So, you know, these more than 20 years. This is a great record, a great return to form again by Godspeed. You know, their crescendos and their guitar textures are present as ever. If you're not familiar with post-rock, you know, get into Godspeed, Tortoise, obviously, very important bands, Mogwai from Scotland. Here's a bit of a nothing record. I picked this up in a very large store in Singapore a few years back. They had this library record section which was filled with like these kind of you know, library titles. This is on Rouge, which is an English label, and it's called Glasshead, Modern Group Sounds featuring electronic keyboards, played by Unit 8. So this treads on the fine line between really cheesy and really interesting. I've played this twice in the past week, and I didn't take it off the turntable, so it's a good sign. It's got this kind of, yeah, a kind of slightly comical electronic thing going, but I think for the moment I will keep it. But as with library music, a lot of it is rubbish, really. I mean, there's only a very finite amount which is really, really good, and you know which ones they are. You know, we pretty much know with the information we have nowadays. Here is one of the best Impulse titles ever, Oliver Nelson, The Blues and the Abstract Truth, featuring, you know, a cast of superstars, you know, Dolphy and Bill Evans and Roy Haynes and Paul Chambers. This is a beautiful Japanese press, fantastic sounding. I have no reason to upgrade to the brand new acoustic sound reissue. No reason, because this is beautiful. There's no reason for me to do an upgrade. If you want samples from something from this, obviously Stolen Moments is the track. You know, it's like a jazz classic, really. But it's a beautiful jazz record. I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's a classic. It's a classic. In Mark and John's video, I was talking about the Red House Painters. I was talking about slowcore, which is this kind of like really miserable sounding guitar-based, song-based genre that evolved in the 1990s with bands like, yeah, the Red House Painters. Low is a very deep exponent of slowcore, but also I think with bands like Songs Ohio, sorry. Songs Ohio was a project by a now deceased singer-songwriter called Jason Molina, and on this you've got, you know, it's really like a slowcore record. I mean, it's a folky alt. Again, I was talking about Smog before, and it's also in that sort of ballpark. This is one of their best records. It's called Axis and Ace. I don't know if you'll see this on the camera, if the camera will pick it up. Axis and Ace, Songs Ohio. Beautiful record which I've been revisiting. I've had this for a decade, and it doesn't get played that often. And since I'm talking about low, the great Minneapolis slowcore act, I revisited the beautiful Trust, which is one of their best records. If you haven't got into low, this is a must. It's just an absolutely fantastic record. The opening three songs, Amazing Grace, Canada, and Candy Girl, are worth the price of admission on this. Especially like the song Candy Girl. It's what Low remind me of, if I'm gonna be honest, is like a more tame version of the Velvet's Underground. You know, you've got this, especially in a sort of a rhythmic kind of fashion. They're very sort of slow building. Sometimes I've got the impression I'm listening to the Velvets. It's nice. Is a great soundtrack for a movie that was never made. This is Alejandro Jodorowsky. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen this doco, but if you haven't, you must. So the story is that Jodorowsky, this crazy Mexican director, and I mean, for me, talking about, I also love cinema, and movies like The Holy Mountain, which he directed, and El Topo, which was, I think, his first full length. They're just essential movies that you have to see. This such crazy. The Holy Mountain is like the most visually striking movie I can think of. It's every single scene is filmed with such care and with such the brilliance and the lunacy as well. The madness that's involved in there is I can't describe this with words. You have to see. Anyway, after those movies, Jodorowsky decided he wanted to take on Frank Herbert's Dune, the monolith of science fiction, and he started working on the project with this French producer, and it was going to extremes. He wanted Salvador Dali as a character in there. He had Mick Jagger. He had Orson Welles teed up for a role. And in the end, the project never got made. He got H.R. Geiger to make some of the animations. And so they never made it. But a few years ago, they released the documentary, which you can see. You can buy it on YouTube. I know this. It's on YouTube. You can rent it on YouTube. Very highly recommended documentary. Jodorowsky's Dune. And then, so when they made the documentary, they got this New York composer, Kurt Stenzel, to make the soundtrack, the soundtrack for the documentary, which is this kind of like electronic, vintage sort of like 70s Tangerine Dream-esque soundtrack, which is came out as a double record, 2015. Very, very cool soundtrack, very cool documentary, all highly recommended. Sorry, I'm talking too much, but I love movies as well. A revisit of one of my favorite bands, one of my favorite. I can't hide it. I love Belle and Sebastian. They're my kind of band. I've been a fan of theirs not since day one. That would be dishonest, but you know. They made their first record in 1996, and I bought it in 1999. So you know, early on enough. But this is their 2006 record, The Live Pursuit, and I think for me is their best effort of their later period. Another Sunny Day and Fun Little Frog. You know. The blues are still blue. Great songs. Great songs. Stuart Murdoch is a genius. I'll just say it that way. And I think it's the last record. Okay, good. We made it. Here is a comp that I've been playing a bit recently. It's called Virtual Dreams, ambient exploration in the house and techno age 1993-1997. This is a comp, a triple LP comp on Music from Memory, the Dutch label, and it's a great compendium of, very nice Aphex Twin-esque, LFO-esque. Well, LFO is on there, sort of like the Warp Records kind of ballpark. Collection of tunes, ambient electronic tunes, very beautiful, very easy to get into. You've got Richard H. Kirk on this. You've got, as I said, LFO, Sun Electric, great comp, triple LP, very thick thing, but great. Okay, that's all I'm going to say for today, people. So if you enjoyed it, then that's great. Talk to me, and take care.